Alright, so we've got 2 lectures for the digestive system. Your objectives, you guys should be able to identify the organs of the digestive system and describe the major functions of the digestive tract. We'll talk a little bit about the oral cavity and the functions of the oral cavity, like mastication, saliva production, why we make saliva, where we make saliva. We'll talk about the pharynx a little bit. We've already talked about it some in respiratory, and the esophagus. And then we'll talk in a bit more detail today about the stomach. So you guys should be able to talk in detail about the histology of the stomach. So the cells that are present lining the stomach, the cells that are present in the gastric pits and gastric glands, as well as the function of the stomach. So its role in digestion and its role in absorption, if there is a role in absorption. So don't go searching for a role in absorption, there might not be one. That's all today. Next class, we're going to go through the histology of the small intestine. We'll talk more about all of the accessory digestive organs. So that would be like the pancreas, the gallbladder, the liver, all of the things that are kind of associated with the GI tract, but not actually part of the tract itself. And then we'll finish up by talking about the large intestine, again, focusing on structure and then digestion and absorption as well. So that will all be the second lecture that you guys will see on video. So the digestive system includes 2 kind of key groups or classes of organs. When we talk about the digestive system, we have the digestive tract, and then we've got a bunch of accessory organs that are kind of associated with the digestive tract. So the digestive tract is essentially like the big tube, right? The tube that goes all the way from the mouth down to the anus. It's also called the GI tract, right? The gastrointestinal tract, and we call it the alimentary canal. Alimentary, or aliment, means food. So alimentary is literally pertaining to food. This is the canal that food passes through as it goes through your body. Again, the digestive tract is one singular muscular tube. And that might seem kind of silly because parts of it don't look very tube-like. But if we follow from the mouth all the way down through the body, we'll see it is one continuous tube that extends all the way down to the anus. It's about 30 feet long, so there's a lot of tube in there, and the tube changes a lot, right? It's very different in your oral cavity, and then this nice thin tube down for your esophagus. And then your stomach is really swollen and kind of like a big pouch. So the tube does change as the function of the organ or the function of that section changes, but it's continuous. You can follow it and follow the lining all the way from the beginning down to the end. As we look at the digestive tract, we can classify the different sections as the oral cavity or mouth, the pharynx or throat, the esophagus, the stomach, and then the small and large intestines. And again, that brings us all the way down to the sphincter at the end where we exit, which is called the anus. So that's the digestive tract, right? That 30 feet of tube. We also have other accessory organs that are really important when we talk about the digestive tract. Some of these are relatively simple things, right? Like the teeth, the tongue, your salivary glands, all of these things in the oral cavity that help us to process food. And then we have some more kind of complex things that are related to the digestive system, like the liver, which remember makes bile, and the gallbladder that stores that bile. The pancreas, remember we said that the pancreas is about 1% endocrine and 99% digestive, right? The exocrine function is part of the digestive system. So the pancreas is going to be another one that's really important when we look at the digestive system. Here we see the whole digestive system on these next 2 pictures. This one is just showing you essentially the digestive tract itself. Right, so the alimentary canal or GI tract, going again all the way from the oral cavity down through the pharynx, the esophagus. Notice the tube is continuous as it comes down to the stomach, so the tube gets wide, but it's still the same tube, right? And then it curves down, and all of this is the small intestine over, and then it gets wider for the large intestine, and it's still the same tube continuing all the way down to the anus. Okay, so again, that's 30 feet relaxed of tube that's all pretty much twisted up in your abdomen. What's up?
Do you mind turning one light on?
Yeah. I mean, no, I don't mind. Yes, I will. Like that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Here we see a lot of the accessory organs that are associated with the GI tract. So here you'll see that they're not actually part of the tube itself, right? That they're just closely associated with the tube. So they might not be like the actual lumen where the food passes through, but they normally make secretions, and these accessory organs will release their secretions into the GI tract or alimentary canal. So salivary glands are kind of the first example that we get to. You guys will remember from lab, we've got the parotid, the sublingual, and the submandibular glands, and those are going to make saliva to push into the GI tract. As we progress downward, you guys will see the liver, and then underneath in green, the gallbladder. Again, the liver makes bile, and the gallbladder stores that bile and concentrates it, and then secretes it into the duodenum, the small intestine. Pancreas, same thing, right? The pancreas makes a bunch of digestive secretions, things that we need in the GI tract, and it excretes them into the duodenum. So while these things are outside of the actual GI tract itself, their products or secretions go into the tract, so they're extremely important for digestion. So the digestive system has numerous functions, most of which you can imagine are surrounding digestion, right? Digesting or breaking down our food. Your textbook lists 6 functions, which we'll go through in detail, but I'm going to add a 7th function on here. So we'll talk about ingestion, mechanical and chemical digestion, secretion, absorption, excretion. But right now, let's just focus on protection for a little bit. I like to add protection as a function of the digestive system because it is extremely protective for multiple reasons. One, what do we have in the stomach that protects us? What's in the stomach? What do we use in it? Acid, right? Inside the stomach has hydrochloric acid. It is extremely acidic. Do most bacteria like to live in acid? No, most nothing likes acid, right? So that hydrochloric acid right there kills tons of pathogens and bugs and anything that we might ingest, because orally is how we ingest most of the bad stuff, right? You chew your fingernails, you eat something, you've got tons and tons of bacteria in food. It's disgusting if you saw all the bacteria that were in the food you eat. So the hydrochloric acid kills a lot of that. So it serves a very, very important protective function. Also, what happens if you eat something that, say, sat out too long and has toxins in it? What happens? You vomit, right? So throwing up. So add vomiting. The vomiting reflex is extremely important. And again, more so a long time ago than now, because we have refrigerators and we have preservatives and all this wonderful stuff right now. But they didn't have that a long time ago, right? So you eat something, if it has toxins in it, you need to get it out of you immediately. And that's what the vomiting reflex is for, to empty out the stomach really quickly before those toxins get absorbed. What other reflex do you think it flushes you out quickly? Diarrhea, right? So if those toxins end up making their way down to your intestine, where most of absorption occurs, you don't want to absorb those toxins into your bloodstream. So your GI tract will start contracting very, very rapidly and push everything throughout the other end. So diarrhea is another, or the defecation reflex, is another very important reflex to help protect the body. So vomiting reflex, defecation, or diarrhea, hydrochloric acid are all extremely important protective functions of the digestive system. The other ones from the book we'll go through in detail. So ingestion is just taking in food. Okay, so this is literally just putting materials into the digestive tract, typically via the mouth, unless you're being fed via a tube. We do this via the oral cavity or via the mouth. So this could be eating, drinking, whatever it is, you're taking something in. That's obviously important. If you can't get it in, your body can't utilize it. So the initial ingestion of food, while simple, is important. We also digest food with the digestive system, right? So what do you think digest means? Like really simply, when you digest food, what do you do? Perfect, you break it down, right? We've got big complex stuff and we need to break it down into something simple that we can absorb and then use. So we actually have 2 different types of digestion. We have mechanical digestion and we have chemical digestion. Your textbook calls this mechanical processing, but be aware that a lot of other books just say digestion, mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. So because both mechanical processing and chemical digestion are ways to break down food, right? To digest it from this really big complex thing that we put in our mouth into these individual little amino acids or individual little monosaccharides or whatever it is that we're going to be absorbing and utilizing. So initially we typically will have mechanical digestion or mechanical processing followed by chemical digestion. What does mechanical mean? What's up? Like moving parts, okay? When you think of doing something like if you're gonna do something mechanically versus chemically, what do you think that mechanical processing is gonna be like? Like physical. Good, like more physical. This is a physical processing. So what we're doing with mechanical processing is we're actually taking this big, huge chunk of food and physically breaking it down. We're physically tearing it apart. So instead of one big bite of steak, you smush it, you tear it, you rip it into shreds, so you've got a smaller, softer, more pliable surface. Now, and this can be like moistening it as well. But this has a couple different functions. One, it makes it easier, right? Imagine taking a huge bite of a sandwich and then just swallowing. What's gonna happen? You're gonna choke, right? It's not gonna go down nicely. So we have to mechanically process food in order to make it move along the digestive tract easier, right? You crush it, you soften it, you tear it apart into small little mushy malleable bits, and that makes it easier to swallow and to push along the digestive tract. But mechanical processing also helps to speed up chemical processing. Okay, and the reason it does this is because it increases the surface area for contact with digestive enzymes. So remember, anytime we make something smaller, right? We have one big piece, and if we make lots of little pieces, we increase the surface area, right? So say I had this one big piece of food here, and I want to chemically break that down, which in a second we'll see utilizes enzymes. So all these enzymes, these chemicals, right, all come and they start to work on this food. Most enzymes are not actually soluble in the food. Like the enzymes aren't going to cut their way into the middle of this big, huge chunk of food. So they'll only work at the outside. So if I have one big piece like this, the outside can all get broken down chemically by the enzymes, but all of this in the center is protected. It's not getting worked on at all. So now if I take this piece and I bite it and I chew it and I mush it and I make indents and I tear it apart into all different little pieces, now I have all of these little mushy chunks of this instead. Now I don't have nearly as much protected area. I've got a lot more surface area. So the enzymes can work a lot better on a lot more of the chemicals once we physically break it down. Okay, so the actual mechanical processing helps to speed up the chemical processing by increasing the surface area of the food molecule. So that's mechanical. Mechanical, again, just like physical, the physical actual breakdown of our food. Where do you think we do most mechanical processing? The mouth, right? You're doing it right back there. So we do what? What do we do in our mouth? We chew, right? That's technically called what? Excellent job, mastication. So most mechanical processing happens because of mastication in the mouth. We will see that the stomach actually has an extra layer of muscle so that it can do this like weird rippling thing, and it can like churn up everything in the stomach and really break it down and dissolve it really well. The hydrochloric acid helps with that. So we do have some mechanical processing and some like swishing around that happens later in the GI tract, but most of it, yeah, is gonna happen in the mouth with our tongue, our teeth for the most part, our cheeks, our saliva as we really mush and chew apart and tear apart that food. So once we start to break that food down physically, then we're gonna try and break that food down chemically. Okay, so the digestive system or digestive tract is important for breaking food down chemically. So what chemical digestion is the actual breaking of chemical bonds. So what we see is that the food we eat is really complex. Remember proteins, right? Proteins are huge. What are proteins? Chains of amino acids. So we can have this huge protein that's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of amino acids. That is way too big for our body to absorb. There's just no way it's going to cross cells and go into the bloodstream. It's too big. And it's super complex, and it might be a protein that we don't even use. So what we have to do is we have to take that protein and we have to break it down into individual amino acids. Those we can use, right? They're small enough to absorb into the bloodstream, and then we can rearrange those amino acids into whatever order we want and make a protein that we can actually use. So we have to chemically digest that original protein in order to take this huge complex molecule and break it down into small absorbable organic molecules that we can use. Same thing with sugars, right? If I have a huge starch, which remember from last semester is a polysaccharide, I've got to break that down into individual sugar molecules, right? Small little monosaccharides. Those I can absorb and use. Fats. I might have huge fats. I need to break them down to nice little fatty acids. Those I can absorb and then I can utilize. So that's the chemical digestion. It's the actual breaking of chemical bonds to separate big complex molecules into small little organic nutrients. Most chemical digestion is done via hydrolysis reactions. Right, I told you those hydrolysis reactions are going to keep coming back and biting you in the butt. Hydrolysis. So what's happening in a hydrolysis reaction? Water comes in and does what? Breaks the bond, right? Hydro water to lyse something is to break it apart. So hydrolysis reactions utilize water to break bonds. This is important for a couple reasons. One, water is extremely important in the digestion of food. We'll see this from, we put like a liter and a half of saliva in our mouths every day. That's a lot. Picture a liter bottle, a liter and a half of saliva every day. And it just continues. The stomach, another liter and a half. Intestines, more. We just throw liters and liters of water into our digestive tract every day because that water is needed to help break down the food and dissolve the food and lubricate, but then also the water is needed for the actual hydrolysis reactions. So water is super important in the GI tract. The other reason this is important is that hydrolysis reactions are not known for being super fast. So these are not like these huge spontaneous reactions that just super quickly go work on their own. They normally need something to help speed them up. And what is it that we use in the body to speed up chemical reactions? Enzymes. Right? Remember, enzymes are proteins that we utilize to speed up chemical reactions. So to catalyze it, right? To make a chemical reaction happen faster. Because we don't have all the time in the world to just sit around and wait for these hydrolysis reactions to just kind of happen eventually. We want to make them happen quick so we can digest the food, we can absorb it, and we can get rid of the wastes. Right? We've got a few hours to make this happen. So we utilize a lot of enzymes as we go through our digestive tract. And we'll see that we have enzymes in very specific places and in very specific orders because we tend to digest things in order, right? Like you can have a polysaccharide and you break it down to ditri. And then later in the tract, you'll have different enzymes that break those disaccharides down to monosaccharides, right? Or the trisaccharides down to monosaccharides. So you'll see we have different enzymes that digest different foods in different parts of the GI tract. Some of the names that you guys will see, the enzyme normally tells you very clearly what it's breaking down. Okay, so if something is called a lipase, remember ACE typically means what? Enzyme. So lipase, what kind of nutrient do you think we break down? Lipids, right? So lipases typically break down lipids. What about a protease? What do you think a protease typically breaks down? Proteins. Amylases, that's the name doesn't really tell you as clearly, but amylases break down sugars. Okay, we'll see this again, we'll go into a lot more detail like nucleases, nucleotides. We'll go into more detail with it, but typically you can look at the enzyme name and see what it's breaking down. For right now, just understand different enzymes in different places break down different substrates. So the GI tract or digestive system is also important for secretion, absorption, and excretion. And these are all kind of related to each other. They're all talking about either putting stuff into the GI tract or taking stuff out of the GI tract. Remember, the GI tract is just a tube, right? It's a big continuous tube. So there's a lumen, right? There's this open area that the food goes through. And it's lined with cells. And then this is the rest of our body, right? Bloodstream, interstitial fluid inside us, not the lumen. If you follow the lumen, where does it end up going? Eventually. Out, right? Eventually it exits the body if you stay in the lumen the whole time. So secretion is when we purposely put something that we can use for digestion into the GI tract. So we secrete lots of water, I said, into the GI tract. We secrete acids, right? Like in the stomach, we put hydrochloric acid into the GI tract. Enzymes, lots of different enzymes we secrete into the GI tract. A little while after the stomach, we'll put buffers to get rid of that acid. So the whole point here is we're purposely putting these useful things into the GI tract to help with digestion. So these cells say, hey, you need this enzyme in order to digest the food? Great, I'll secrete it. I'll put it into the GI tract. Now you can use that to break the food down. Absorption is movement in the opposite direction. When I think of it, when you absorb something, what do? You take it into you or put it out of you? You take it in, right? When you absorb it, you're taking it into you. So absorption is when we take these good nutrients, vitamins, minerals, whatever it is that we got from the food, and we absorb them into the body. Right? So this could be like sugar, this could be fatty acids, this could be vitamin A, it could be anything, doesn't matter. Electrolytes, water, we reabsorb a lot of the water. But the point is it was in the digestive tract, and we're gonna absorb it across these epithelial cells and then into the body, eventually into the bloodstream. Okay, so that's useful stuff that we want to take in and keep in the body to utilize. Excretion is also putting stuff into the GI tract or out of the body, but the point here is that it's wastes. So secretion is when we secrete useful things for digestion into the GI tract. Excretion is when I have something that's a waste and I just need to get rid of it, so I excrete it into the GI tract. So you could say you excrete like bile, right? How the liver and gallbladder, you could say that you're excreting bile into the duodenum because there are waste products present there in that bile. The ultimate kind of excretion of the GI tract or the digestive system is the excretion of feces, right? So defecation or releasing feces from the rectum is excreting it. It's a waste product and we're getting rid of it. But excretion and secretion are normally different because excretion is something having to do with a waste. Secretion is having to do with something that's going to usefully help you digest. We'll see excretion when we do renal as well.